Hello everybody, Desmond2530 here, back again with another video. Today we'll be reviewing potentially one of gaming's biggest comeback stories of all time, and a game which I have personally sunk over 700 hours into. That's right everyone, we're finally doing the ill-fated review of Battlefield 4. So for some quick, how would I put it, statistics, this game came out at the same time as Call of Duty Ghosts, so I think it's like 2013, don't quote me. I believe it's 2013. And so yeah, this game is like 7 years old, something like that. It's either 7 or 8 years old. It was either 2012 or 2013, don't, like, shoot me over it. And overall, this is considered one of the best Battlefield games of all time by many people. Although, at release, this game was actually very, very poorly received. A lot of people get bashed on, especially if they try and talk bad about this game. Though you won't see it as publicly, I've seen multiple people, especially like within my friend group, who dislike this game and who get talked down to terribly because they don't like this game. So, either way, I'm gonna go on to a review of this game, and I'm going to be labeling out what content I'm looking at. So, firstly, I'm going to talk briefly about the campaign, even though the campaign's not that important. I'm going to just talk about the overall aesthetic of the game, like base, and then I'm going to talk about the multiplayer, which will be sectioned off into weapons and game balancing, vehicles, map design, and overall feel. And unlike my other videos, I'm not going to put massive amounts of editing into this because A, I have school to deal with, and B, because of the fact that, simply put, it's a lot of effort for a video that most people should know already how this game works. So I'm not going to be putting up massive like titles and like a bunch of like switching slides and stuff like that. So this might be a bit more laid back video, but still. Either way, so simply put, I'm going to go over some history real quick, and then I'll go on to like my points that I was going to make. So, Battlefield 4 released 2012-2013, like I said, and it was met with good reviews at first, but was very quickly, very quickly, ended up becoming a mixed bag. This was due to two main issues, one of those being the fact that there was massive amounts of lag, namely netcode errors and hit detection errors and a lot of things like that. You can actually watch a lot of videos from back in the day just showing off some of the glitches that would happen. You'd have people falling through maps, you'd have people getting inside of the buildings, under the map, in the sky barrier, people frickin' like weapons that would do like 30 times the normal damage to a leg shot. Like, it was terrible at first, and the thing is that you had a very good chance of crashing and other such terrible bugs, so it was very hard to actually be able to play on the game for more than an hour and a half at a time. And this was up until around spring of that year, because it obviously released in like Call of Duty standard times, like October, November, somewhere around there is where it released in months time. We had to wait all the way until spring till this game was playable by that, and by that point we already had 2 DLCs out. And as another note, there was also a very strange thing that happened where Second Assault DLC and the China Rising DLC had a very weird debacle, because the way it worked is that apparently Xbox got Second Assault before PC and PlayStation, but PlayStation and PC got China Rising before them, and they switched their dates. So not only did they have 2 DLCs ready at the same time, which is why some of them had some more bugs, but you also had the fact that both those DLCs had very confusing release date, because if you're on Xbox it was released before PlayStation PC, but if you're on PC you had China Rising, which was considerably a clusterfuck for the community, especially because depending on what platform you're playing on, it would make it a lot weirder to try and make content, because you had to have somebody who owned an Xbox One in order to do that, and then you need somebody who owned a PC or a PlayStation 3 in order to show the China Rising content. Aside from that, namely after the spring patch, things got a lot better. At some point, they ended up introducing a patch that also reduced the minimum damage of assault rifles, or sorry, the minimum and maximum damage of assault rifles to pre-Battlefield, to early Battlefield 3 days. So every weapon took one more shot to kill at all ranges, except for SMGs, and heavy. I believe it was heavy machine guns. This was mainly because of the fact that they wanted the PDWs to be more effective, and, well, it did it. Okay, so brief history point over. Time to go over the campaign real quick. And yeah. So the campaign for Battlefield 4 is a continuation from Battlefield 3. Not directly, but it has some indirect ties to it. Mainly what is going on is that the Chinese and Russians have basically started working together, and the Chinese, which are the specific faction you're fighting against in this game, they are basically, they're trying to kill this famous figure who is trying to protest against the government for peace. And that's the whole story, is basically you end up finding him, and your job as your lone carrier is supposed to basically get him and protect him and basically fight against the Chinese. I can't say very much else in terms of the plot because I don't want to do too much, but for those who haven't played it, because it's not the worst campaign ever, but it's not that great. Although there is a good reason to do the campaign, I'll get onto that in a second. Overall, the campaign though is pretty good. It's not as good as Battlefield 3 or Bad Company, namely Battlefield 3, because Battlefield 3 was I don't know, it wasn't my favorite campaign ever, but it definitely topped this one. It definitely topped this one by a mile. The main thing I would say about this game, campaign-wise, is that the only reason to play the campaign is to beat it 3 times. And you don't even really have to beat it 3 times, you just have to beat it once and then replay the last mission 3 times. The reason why that is because every time you, at the end of the campaign, you will get 3 choices. I won't tell you what those choices are, even though this is an old game, so you guys should probably know by now. But, for each one of the choices, you get a new weapon. In this case, you get the M249, the P90 PDW, M249 SAW light machine gun, and the Type 95 assault rifle. So that's going to be on the campaign. Overall, I'd give it maybe a 5 out of 10. It's just and it's short. So somewhere between a 5 and a 4 out of 10 in my opinion. It's not terrible, but it's not good either. Next, I'll be going over multiplayer with weaponry and class customization / balance and all that. So this game is functionally identical in the style of how it plays to Battlefield 3. Namely, the biggest difference between it and Battlefield 3 is that you get the ability to pick, you have more attachment options now, and same thing with gear and all that. Basically, it's Battlefield 3 with a few weapon switch-ups and a lot more weapons and stuff to choose from. Namely optics and stuff like that. But overall, I enjoy class customization in this game. I think it's good. Namely, I would say that it's a bit weird because the barrel customizations are kind of stupid. Main reason why is that a lot of the attachments, or almost every attachment in the game, has a downside for barrels, and some of them make no sense. The compensator and the muzzle brake both give you accuracy decreases, which makes the weapons harder to it makes it harder for your bullet to hit a target, even if you're aiming directly at them. Or you have things like the heavy barrel, which give you significantly increased recoil for accuracy stats. So everything's like a give and take, and some of these barrels make no sense. like that, because the heavy rail would actually reduce your recoil in real life, which is what hardline did, by the way. Thanks, hardline. So overall, other than like my annoyance with barrel attachments, overall weapon customization is fine. As for the weapons in this game, you have access to one for your class. Assault has assault rifles, obviously. Engineer has PDWs. Support has light machine guns. And Recon has snipers. And then every single class has access to 3 special weapons. Namely, these being the DMRs, the carbines, and the shotguns. So just to go over real quick. Assault rifles and carbines are your standard, like, they're your standard assault weapons in any video game. Simply put, full auto, semi-decently hard hitting to slightly harder hitting, depending on which weapon, obviously. And they tend to be very good at medium range. Sometimes they can be decent at long range, and some are better at close range, but point still being. And as for the rest of them, you have PDWs, very good in close range, very good handling stats, but overall they're terrible at range and they have bad accuracy. DMRs, extremely accurate bullet patterns, but they're semi-auto, and they have issues pertaining to their fire rate and stuff like that. Namely, they're good at medium range, but outside of medium range, they're kind of terrible. LMGs, depending on which one you have, my support review is in the background, so you can go over those in more detail. But you basically have LMGs with 200 round mags, like the one you see here, which have high fire rates, medium recoil, and they're kind of inaccurate, but they're bullet hoses. You have heavier machine guns, which have higher damage values, but they tend to have lower rates of fire and have much higher recoil and worse spread. And then you have the assault rifle like LMGs, which are LMGs that basically they usually tend to run like standard like assault rifle mags or extended assault rifle mags, and they tend to be very close to assault rifles in terms of accuracy and damage and such, but they give up they gain slightly less accuracy for the ability to have better stats when standing or when crouched and going prone. That is the main difference. Sniper rifles, they're bolt action rifles except for one that's semi-auto, but that's not that big of a deal. High damage, takes a headshot to kill. Some snipers take more than one headshot to kill, and those are useless. Except I think one. Shotguns, obviously shotguns are kind of self-explanatory. You know, put them in some person's face, blow them up. If you have semi-auto shotguns, you can sometimes run frag rounds and make them like a semi-DMR looking thing. Aside from that, that's weapons. Pistols. Pistols are pistols. I'm not going to go into it too much. If you've played with pistols in most other video games, you'll get the gist. Somewhat low damage. Somewhat low recoil. Some of them do really high damage. Some of them don't. Basically just your standard pistols in any like shooter game. But that's weapons. Sorry if I'm being a bit I say a bit generalized, but I only have so much time to review, so either way. As for gadgets, each class has their own gadgets and their own tree, or what you would call them specializations. Not in the same style that like perks and stuff like that is, namely the bar above my squad, which you can see down the left by the minimap. As your squad does better without dying, you get more upgrades to that bar, and what that will do is that those will each give you a perk. Each class has 2 class-specific ones, and they basically do something similar to what the class does. In this case, you have like support, which this is the indirect fire one. You get increased ammo bags that you can drop, so you can drop 2 ammo bags instead of 1. You get you have a more total ammo carrying capacity. You have the ability to carry your mortars are are a lot better. So basically, like, your mortars have more ammo, and they regen ammo faster. And your last thing is the cooler one, which is resupply unit, which is while you or a squad mate occupy a vehicle, friendlies around them will restore ammo slowly. You don't see it happen very much, but I have used it and I've seen it happen. It's very powerful when it goes off. And those are like the main things. Some of the gadgets include mortars, rocket launchers, grenade launchers, repair tools, C4, paper airplanes that you can bash into people's skulls and run them over with it. You know, standard Battlefield gadgets. If you guys want more in detail about some of them, I would recommend looking at my reviews for each of the classes. I'm still working on Assault, and I will get that posted as soon as possible. But the other 3 classes have their review set if you guys want to go into more detail on them. So just check those out if you want any more detail on what's going on here. So next up we have vehicles. The vehicle sandbox in this game I think is the greatest of any Battlefield. Namely because the fact it's not like Battlefield 1 or 5 where you have just a select number of vehicles and those vehicles you choose when to spawn. Like you choose from like a preset plate to spawn in. That's not how it works in this game. In this game you have specific spawns for specific vehicles on specific points and you get tons of them. Namely, on this map right here, I believe this one is a Lankang Dam. Yeah, it's Lankang Dam. You get 2 jets, 1 stealth, 1 attack, 1 scout helicopter, 1 attack helicopter, 1 AA, 1 attack boat. I think it's like 2 tanks, or it's 2 BTRs and 1 tank, something like that. Basically you get a whole shit ton of tanks, and some of them are of different varieties. And then you get transport vehicles. So, in this game, not only is there a great variety of vehicles overall, there's more of them in a map, and they're structured better. So it makes it to where you don't have idiots going in and just taking like low-class vehicles, or like taking vehicles that are terrible in the situation and just running around with them and then ruining the game. Namely, I've done it sometimes, but still. Aside from that, you also have the AC-130, which you see a tiny bit of it in this gameplay earlier on, which that is a commander spawned vehicle, meaning that you have to have a commander to spawn it. But yeah, overall vehicle customization is very high. You can change the rounds your vehicle shoots. You can change your secondary weaponry. You can change like your countermeasures for dealing with different enemies. Active protection is always the best one. And then you have a standard vehicle perk, which is basically just to make your vehicle better. Sometimes like increase reload speed, slight damage resistance against explosives, auto repair that does better, such as that. As for a final thought of them, I think they're the best in the series by far is this game. I wish there were a few more vehicles in there, namely like things such as the like Mi-24 Hind and stuff like that, like, you know, vehicles that bridge the gap a bit more and are a bit more like unique to their side. But that's not a big deal to me. That's just a little thing I would wish. Next up, I will go to maps. Simply put, the map design in this game is beautiful. It's very, how would I put it? The map design is just flawless in a lot of ways. Namely, there are some bad maps and there are some maps that have issues. But all of the maps not only play well in an infantry and vehicle standpoint, but they also, the vehicles seem right for the map. For specifics, for specific placement, I would think Gomad Railway, what people think is one of the favorite maps, has plethora of vehicles and plethora of other things, like, you know, things to explode people with. But the thing is that you can still play as infantry because the A, B, and C flag are all very close to each other, and they have lots of buildings for cover. So vehicles that tend to go over there tend to get killed very fast, as we're down by I think it's E, F, and G. Down there's a lot more open space, so the vehicles can fire and pick off infantry that run through there. So being an infantry on one side of the map is difficult, whilst being infantry on one side of the map is easy, and vice versa for vehicles. And this is the general flow with a lot of maps, is that a lot of maps have certain choke points where vehicles are extremely powerful and they're absolutely needed, as where there are other places where vehicles are a detriment to have around because they can sometimes just get you killed. Namely, if you're in like a small alleyway and people are, throwing rockets everywhere at you because there's a tank, and the tank explodes and kills your whole team. So overall, I think the map design is very good. No map feels the exact same. I'm not going to talk about DLC for that. I'm talking about just base game. Even with the DLC, some of the maps are similar, but they're not similar enough to where I would say that they're not their own unique map. And every single map, at least in the base game, has some sort of levolution. This is some destructible environment you can do, and they'll cause a bigger event to happen. On Langking Dam, you have the dam, which you don't see in this whole gameplay, but it's up on the main map. It's up to the right, like that massive dam in the back of the mini-map. And if you have enough people fire rockets into it, it will explode and break down, causing a bunch of boulders to come flying down. And if those boulders can destroy tanks, anything in their path, in one hit. As for a final thought on map design, I simply love it. I can't go into too many other specifics about it, but it is probably, I think, one of the crowning achievements of this game, is just how good the map design is. Because no matter which playstyle you are, you can make it work. The only exclusion to that would, I think, be sniping on Operation Locker, which I've seen people do it. Same thing with Metro, but I wouldn't recommend it. As for any other specific things, the DLCs for this game have been great. The only one I dislike is Final Stand. Not because the maps are bad, not because of anything like that, namely because there's a lack of actual game-changing content. There is no weapon you can get. There is only an attachment, a gadget, and originally there was a weapon you could get, but you can now get the Phantom Bow through doing a thing on a free DLC. So that's the only DLC I wouldn't recommend getting, unless you just want all the maps. Namely, my favorites are Naval Strike, and China Rising. The issue with Second Assault is that being as a fast-paced player is very difficult to do the assignments, but overall they are all good DLC. And yeah, honestly, whilst this game had a very rough start, and whilst even I can say that I did not like this game at release, to everybody, this game is definitely the untouchable game in Battlefield. I don't think there's anything I can really say bad about it now, other than bugs, glitches, maybe a few weapons that don't work very well or underpowered. But overall, this game is a masterpiece, and I recommend you all buy it if you get the chance. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys all later.